if you were on a road trip and you decided that you wanted to have a really good experience, maybe you'd map out every single stop, every single possible destination, and you'd plan it all out end to end. And then hopefully you'd have a really good experience. Thing is, though, spontaneity is a real valuable thing when you go off on an adventure. As a matter of fact, if you know exactly where you're going to go and what you're going to do before you begin to do it, then you might even ask the question, is it really an adventure at all? Because it's all completely on rails. It's completely predictable. That's actually one reason why I'm a fan of MMOs, because they create that sense of randomness, that sense that maybe you're going to have a random interaction with another person. Maybe there's going to be something during that adventure that you haven't seen before, or that you weren't expecting to see. And so there's a sort of a sense of curiosity when you log on to the game, because every play session is not necessarily going to be completely the same as every other. But in life, I was thinking about how we tend to commoditize a lot of things like love and care and service. And maybe we do the right things, or we're trying to strive for the right goals, but the motive in our heart is not the correct one. Maybe you say that you love someone, and so you try to control them, to make them do what you want them to do, or you think that you know what's best for them, and so you try to force them to be part of whatever initiative it is that you're trying to drive. Well, is that really love if you're trying to manipulate someone and control them and tell them where they have to be and what they're going to do, and you just trust that because you have their best interest at heart, it doesn't matter if you're sort of doing a command and control, sort of a take charge approach. No one likes to be bullied. No one likes to be treated like a commodity or like property. No one likes to be told what they're going to do and not given any particular say in what they're signed up for. That's why a lot of children wind up distancing themselves from their parents. It's not because the parents are trying to be cruel or bad people. It's just because the parents think they know what's best, and maybe they do, but they force it. They say, you know, it's my way or the highway, and, you know, you're my property. You can't go anywhere. It's my house. It's my rules. And, well, it doesn't matter who you are. When someone comes along and tells you that you don't have any option to give consent to the life that you're forced to live, that creates friction, and it creates animosity. It makes people feel like they want to find a way to escape. It's not about whether the message is right. It's not about whether the directive is a good one. It's just that ultimately we have to feel like we are governors of our own destiny. And if we don't feel that way, then it's not really love. And that's the elephant in the room, that you can't be obsessed with control and also be coming at it from a spirit of love and acceptance and tolerance and patience and virtue, because those things don't work together. Either you have a spirit of gentle service, or you have a spirit of personal ego, and ego does not engender love. So it's important to put yourself in the shoes of someone else and say, you know, how does what I'm doing and what I'm saying make them feel? Does it make them feel valued? Does it make them feel like they're in a position where they can make their own decisions? Or does it kind of just assume that I'm doing them a favor by thinking for them. No one wants to be in a position where they're set up to fail, but nobody wants to be in a position where they aren't seen or aren't valued either. It's sort of like a dog. Think about a dog. You have a dog, and you always want to know, where is that dog? What is it doing? Like, is it still where it's supposed to be? And you think that way because you don't believe the dog can be trusted. You don't trust it not to run away. You don't trust it not to get in the garbage. So you're always going to check on the dog. You're going to make sure that it's in its pen, it's in its fence, it's locked away in the correct place, or it's not misbehaving. And maybe you would say you love the dog. You cherish it. You really like having the dog. The dog means a lot to you. And you treat it well. You feed it good food. You give it treats. You do a lot of nice things for the dog. And so you would think the dog should be extremely grateful for the care and the love it receives. And yet, maybe the dog resents all of those niceties, and maybe the dog wants to be free. Not because freedom would be easier, but because freedom would be true to its calling. That's actually what the book, Jack London's Call of the Wild, is really all about. The domesticated dog went up to Alaska, and it found a wildness. It found a new life in Alaska. Eventually, it left behind all of the things of fire and hearth. It left behind all of the niceties, all of the securities. The dog, Buck, left behind all of it and went to run free with the wolves because it said fire and roof were his. And yet he retained his wildness and his wiliness, and from deep within the forest a call still sounded. I think a lot of us feel like that sometimes, trapped in maybe a dead-end job or maybe a toxic relationship or whatever it might be. We have that feeling that we do like the conveniences of our lives. We do like it when people provide for us or safeguard us, or when we have a situation which gives us security. But it was Benjamin Franklin who said that people would rather they would rather bear the chains and shackles of usury and usurpation rather than to break the shackles that bind them and establish new guards for their future security. Meaning that people would rather put up with things that demean them, or things which limit them, or things that make them feel undervalued, rather than to go away, to step out, to walk away, to say, I'm going to find a new path. I'm going to make a way for myself, even if it's harder, even if it's more risky, because I'd rather be free than to be a slave, even if I'm a slave that's treated well. And I think that's a good lesson to remember as we go through life, whether we're being taken advantage of in some way, passively, or if we're being, maybe we are the ones who take advantage of other people in some way without really meaning to or thinking about it that way. And I think it's also important to remember that many times abuse, manipulation, all of those things, they're not really stuff that is always marked by cruelty. Sometimes it's just the micro messages of not really valuing someone, not really trusting them to empower. And so instead of empowering, you limit them. Instead of respecting their ability to make decisions and to give consent on their own, you try to make decisions on their behalf because you don't really trust that they would make the right decision if they were given the autonomy to do so. That sort of thing is harmful to a person's spirit. And many times the harm we do to people's spirit is a lot more detrimental than anything we could ever do to their body. When you minimalize someone, when you marginalize them, and when you make them feel like they are perhaps always tracked or monitored or controlled, but never really seen. If you are in a situation like that, it's usually best to walk away, even if it seems like maybe it would come at a high price. And if you are a person who thinks that you are perhaps above doing wrong in the lives of others, it might be a good thing to look over your life, look over your relationships with other people, and contemplate whether you treat people in a way which respects them, or if you treat people in a way that controls them. Love and control are not things which work well together. And yet it's been said that the sea is the most powerful force of all, because it puts itself lower than every other body of water, and the streams and all the great lakes and all of the waters of the earth feed into and pay tribute to the sea, because it is the lowest. And so if you want to do good in your life, or do good in the lives of others, you have to put yourself below them. You have to approach others with a spirit of service. But when we say it's important to have a spirit of service, I don't know that that necessarily means that we should think about serving people above us. Now, of course, sometimes it's our duty to do just that. But the highest service is when we choose to serve those in a lower station. When we choose to respect people who do not command respect. When we choose to empower people who don't have innate authority or power. When we choose to have a spirit of service when we are not under any obligation to do so. That is the kind of spirit that truly shines, that truly can make a positive difference in the lives of others. That's the kind of thing that matters. And in the business world, there's this comic that goes around, and you've probably seen it, of two different kinds of leaders. There's the leader who's like the pharaoh being carried on the backs of all of the workers. And then there's the leader who's out front with all of the workers, pulling along with them. And, it's always said that you should be the leader who's pulling right along with all of your people. And that's true. But it's also true that the greatest service is often not marked by someone who has a badge of leadership, someone who is extremely aware of the fact that they are supposed to be leading others. If you have to have a badge to remind yourself and others that you are separate from others, then you're not really a leader, because the great leaders of the world are the ones who are quiet, who don't demand that anyone heed them or do what they ask. They're the gurus, they're the spiritual leaders. They're the people who would never even try to give you advice unless you sought advice from them. And even then, they would probably tell you to listen to your heart instead of trying to get you to do things their way. True leadership in its highest form is a still, small, quiet voice that is patient and never pushy, not evangelistic, not trying to do outreach, not trying to convince, just simply being, and being a form of support to those who seek the light. True love is like a lighthouse. It is visible from a long distance, and it does save lives of crews who are on ships in the night, but it does not have a voice. It is just a quiet, consistent light that treats everyone, regardless of their station, in precisely the same way, with grace and benevolence. That is how we should live our lives. It's how we should treat other people. And if we find ourselves in a situation where we are treated poorly by others who would like to demand service, then we should probably try, however possible, to distance ourselves from those toxic sorts of people who always try to make whatever is going on all about them. One thing I've found is that when people are very egotistical, or they're very controlling, or they're manipulative, even if they try to do better, they really can't do better. They can't really break out of that because it's in their nature. It's baked in. It's part of who they are. They'll always be like that. Same thing with people who are restless, that cannot enjoy peace in their life. No amount of talking to them is going to make them find peace, because it's in their nature not to be at peace. And if you're in the company of those kinds of people, it shouldn't be your goal to change or manipulate them either. But you should find a path to creating distance between them and you, so that you can have your peace without allowing it to be compromised by those who are incapable of peace. In any case, good trees do not bear bad fruit. And so one of life's great lessons is, as you make your way in the world, remember that if something seems to be doing bad, and if it makes you feel bad, and if all of the evidence of the fruit of the Spirit is negative, then you should probably stop trying to convince yourself that next time it'll be different, or you're just imagining it. And instead, you should just allow it to be a self-evident truth that if something does not appear to be working well, it probably isn't. If someone does not appear to have good character, they probably don't. If someone feels to you like they're manipulative, they probably are. And if someone seems like they exhibit red flags of bad behavior or toxic traits, those are likely going to define your entire relationship with them. It's amazing how often the first early warning signs are actually indicative of the entire experience. Just like maybe a game that you've played where you've said, well, I didn't enjoy the game for the first 2 hours, but maybe if I play it for another 200 hours, it'll get good later on toward the end. Well, it usually doesn't, because usually if something is good, it's good right from the start. So be careful about allowing yourself to rationalize bad behavior, to rationalize and make excuses for people who are toxic and situations that are toxic by saying, well, I'll just stay there a little bit longer, or I'll try to change my method and maybe someone will change their behaviors. Or, maybe even though it feels like it's not good, it actually is, and it's just, in my head. I think in general, our heart is usually pretty close to being on point when it comes to what is good for us and what is not. So wherever you find yourself, if you are in doubt of what to do, or you feel perhaps indignant about something in life, a good place to begin is just by listening to your heart and trusting that your feelings are indeed valid, and walk away from darkness. Always remember, when you feel like you can't walk away, or you feel like you're stuck in a pattern, maybe trapped in some sort of a system or something, usually you can walk away. Usually you can do something different, and you know what? Your life is not going to end. It's going to be okay. Sometimes life can be frightening when we feel like we don't have options. But usually we do have a little bit more control in our life than we think, if we just stop being afraid to venture out. As always, good luck on your adventure. Until next time, thanks so much for watching.